Good afternoon, residents of Everett, Washington. I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of September 28th, 2022, and welcome everyone to City Council chambers. City Council is conducting our weekly council meeting hybrid. This will allow us to reach members of our community who wish to participate via Zoom or those who wish to attend in person in the chambers this afternoon. It is our hope to continue this format to be as accessible as possible to our community. For those who wish to participate in the future via Zoom, you may find the public comment registration form on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Once you go to register here to provide comment via Zoom, you will need to fill out the form completely, and if you wish to provide public comment at a future date. After the public comment form is submitted, you will receive an email confirmation with the Zoom link and the phone number to the meeting. Participants must submit this form at least 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Forms submitted after that time will not receive the Zoom link number to speak, but may still participate the day of the meeting by coming in person to the council chambers right up to the time before the meeting begins. Please note that we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. And we also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. With that, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Fossey.
Here.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Councilmember Schwab.
Here.
President Stonecipher.
Excused.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Vice President Toohey.
Here. And now I would like to ask Council Member Zarlingo to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now I would like to ask Councilmember Schwab to read the Land Acknowledgment.
I would love to. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stohoops, people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of September 21st, 2022?
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Thank you.
Vogely seconds.
Thank you. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yep. Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Toohey.
Yes. Moving on, Mayor Franklin, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Council Vice President Toohey. We have a very special guest with us today. So I'm very happy to invite Pat Mccarthy, our Washington State Auditor, forward. She's here all the way from Olympia to do a special presentation. Thank you.
Great. Well, I'm glad to be here, and it's nice to see all of you. We not only do your financial audits, but we do a whole host of things at the State Auditor's Office. But one of the fun things we get to do is we get to recognize governments, whether they're local governments or state agencies, when they do good things. And so we're not there just to point out what you need to improve, but also when you are doing things really well. So I'm tickled pink to be here. And I have brought, of course, with me our team. And so if you guys would stand up, Carrie Rooney, Wendy Choi, Christina Baylor, and Heidi Brillantes. Yeah, these are the women that actually worked on your audits. So, okay, well, so that your listening audience knows, we don't give very many of these out. They're really quite special. And in fact, for 2022, and we're in September still, we've given one to Bellingham, the Stanwood Camino School District, Montesano School District, Yakima School District, a lot of school districts this go around, and the City of Everett. So they're very special, and I'm going to tell you why. So I'm going to read the letter that I'm giving to your mayor, Cassie Franklin. So dear Mayor Franklin, the State Auditor's Office recognizes the City of Everett's dedication to making government work better. The city's leadership promotes a culture of accountability for public resources and strives to maintain strong internal controls. The city's commitment to good stewardship of public funds and collaborative relationship with our office embodies its vision of responsiveness, transparency, and accountability. The city's finance and budget staff have consistently demonstrated their commitment to maintaining strong internal controls over the financial statement preparation process. Finance Director Treasurer Susie Hagen and her team, specifically Mary Lamb, Tatiana Sarmiento, and Rayanne Nielsen, dedicate significant efforts in executing and documenting their review processes. They have also created well-organized documentation to support the city's annual comprehensive financial report. In addition, communication between the city's departments helped ensure compliance with federal requirements for the Coronavirus Relief Fund, which presented numerous challenges to grantees across the nation. The city's economic development staff researched the requirements to effectively monitor its sub-award contracts and comply with the award's terms and conditions. The city's internal controls also allowed it to provide assistance to the community quickly while still maintaining compliance. That's notable. Throughout the audit, we were able to communicate potential concerns directly to those responsible and were provided responses and support timely in order to quickly resolve outstanding items and to ensure adequate workflow. We appreciate the city's commitment to the audit process as well as the positive and professional relationship it continuously demonstrates while working with our office. So I want to thank you for your hard work, and I want to thank you for the dedication to the citizens of Washington State and the citizens that you serve here in Snohomish County. So thank you very much, and thank you, City of Everett, for the good work that you've done. And so maybe we could just have your staff, if they're here, stand up and we can give them a round of applause.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for the honor of this recognition. This finance team is small but mighty, and they work really hard behind the scenes at all times to ensure that we maintain public trust. So I can't thank you all enough. Susie, your leadership and your entire team, you're incredible. And then thank you to Dan and Tyler. I see you in the audience as well. And Julie, I know you guys have all worked on our Everett Cares and ARPA-funded grants that were very complicated. So really appreciate your hard work too, and definitely appreciate the recognition. Thank you so much.
Right, well, thank you, and thank you for the good work that you're doing for the citizens here. So I have this to give to you, and if you want to come up and we'll take a quick pic. There you go. Let me shake your hand. Or I give you a hug. Well, I don't know. Who knows what to do anymore?
Yeah, okay, we'll come get,
Okay, we'll come to you.
Come on, finance.
Do it.
We'll do a photo. Thank you so much for making the trip up.
You bet. My pleasure.
You can squeeze in, pretend you're like really close.
Yeah. Why don't you guys come in too? We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all these folks.
1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Don't blink.
Take the other chins, right? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. There you go. Hey, have a proud day.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is an incredible honor, and as she shared, it is a very few of those that are awarded. So our council, you should all be very proud of the work that our finance team is doing. So thank you very much. And then I wanted to take just a moment to make Thank you so much. To make a couple comments on Sound Transit, there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We're still 15 years out from getting light rail to Everett, or more. I don't know what it is now. Don't want to think about that. But there's been a lot of misperceptions out there of the purpose of light rail and where we want to go and why. So I just wanted to provide a little update of some of the thought process that we have going on. And I do also want to recognize Councilmember Zarlingo, who's been working alongside of me. He's my partner in crime on Sound Transit. He's part of the elected leadership group. But Sound Transit is the voters approved a package that has the system go out into our Southwest Industrial Center in South Everett, which I am very pleased that was the voter approved package, and that is a very important part of the system. And I can't stress enough the importance of connecting Sound Transit to the largest job center on the entire system. This is not just Boeing, it's Boeing and aerospace and all of the industrial partners in Southwest Everett. And it is truly the largest job center between the end of the system, which is in Everett, and all the way the other end to Tacoma. So connecting to that job center ensures that people aren't leaving Everett for jobs in Seattle, that people are actually coming in to Everett for jobs in Everett. And that's a really important purpose of this system. I also think it's important that we think about the stations and the number of stations we want in our city. There's been a push to consider just going up by 5. And if we do that, we lose at least 2 stations. And that's so to only have 1 station in our city. That's a third of the investment that we actually want. And for me as mayor, I've been working really hard to try to ensure equitable investment across our city, and that means investing in South Everett. We have not had enough investments in South Everett, so not allowing those stations to be built and serve a very transit-dependent community, and to have the $1 billion of investment go into South Everett, and for South Everett to become a transit-oriented development community. I think we've all talked about really wanting pedestrian access, bicycle access, wheelchair access to public transportation, which if you went up I-5, freeways get in the way of that. Southwest Everett has a unique potential to really do that. And because, unfortunately, it's so many years out, we have a lot of time to get this right. We have been watching and learning from the rest of the system and the way the developments are happening. And so we have the opportunity to plan to ensure that we are not displacing residents, but we're actually investing in communities and protecting communities. So one of the decisions early on that we've made, for example, was to take the route that would put it right on Casino Road off of the table, because we did not want to interfere with those communities that are such an important, vibrant, vital part of the city. So Executive Summers and Mayor Frizzell in Linwood and I are your representatives from Snohomish County. We are the only 3 representatives. We are listening to all the voices. We are working with all our partners in this community. And we have very weak voices because King County and Pierce County and the rest of our board members do not understand this community. We do. And we are connected to our residents. So I encourage our residents to really pay attention to this. This afternoon, there's an elected leadership group that will be discussing the Everett Link alignment. I encourage you to watch that. Sound Transit will be presenting information and data on the studies that they've done to the various alignments and the pros and cons. And I think it'll be very interesting information for our residents to receive. And remember that the system exists not to race to downtown, but to serve our entire community, which South Everett is a very important part of. So, but yeah, again, thank you, Councilmember Zarlingo, and I encourage the rest of the council to watch that meeting too, and I'm happy to always answer questions that you may have for me specifically as your board member. So with that, no further comments right now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for all that. Moving on. Angie, do we have anyone signed up to speak this afternoon?
Hello, Vice President Tui. We have received a comment, a written comment in support of item 9 for the outdoor multi-purpose stadium from John Stanton of the Seattle Mariners Baseball Club, and I provided this to council administration and to the clerk to be part of the permanent record. And we have one person signed up to speak via Zoom. When I call your name, please, when you have your camera on, unmute yourself, give your full name and city for the record, and just remember that you have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Starting now?
Yes.
Okay, Joe Kunstler here. I'm a concerned friend of Everett. I live in Skagit County, but I take a lot of transit. As you can see, the photo behind me. First, I want to congratulate the City of Everett on your Stewardship Award. It is much appreciated, especially as someone who files complaints to State Auditor's Hotline a few times a year about different governments. I appreciate Mayor Franklin's comments about the 3 to 5 p.m. Everett Link meeting. It is on my calendar, and I don't care what's going on. I'm going to be watching it. I also had a letter sent to the mayor and the council, and part of my letter brought up my support for a Highway 99 alignment. I do not support an I-5 alignment. It is for the reasons Mayor Franklin so intelligently stated. I have deep concerns about this painful alignment. I've always had them since 2016, and I feel like we were rudely dismissed by Executive Summers, and the backlash is what we're seeing right now. And it's a backlash at Boeing, it's a backlash at Executive Summers, and sadly, one of my favorite politicians, Mayor Franklin, is in the middle of it. And it breaks my heart. I asked at today's meeting there be some tone policing of each other, that the information be presented without the kind of angry outbursts we've seen at the last meeting. I understand it's frustrating, these alignments, but I'm going to try to say this with as much kindness, thoughtfulness, and knowledge as I can impart. I am deeply concerned that we may get to a point where the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, gets letters about this alignment. And one Peter Rogoff was the one that cut off the Oakland BART airport connector. I did my own research on it. It was because there was inadequate study and civil rights concerns. So that's why South Trenton staff wants to do the studies on a Highway 99 and that many adjectives I-5 alignment that I, again, do not and will not support. I also have a deep concern about a public comment period in December. I think that that's an inappropriate time for a project that is our Generations mega project. It's holiday season. I really hope that after the moral integrity, the integrity this mayor has shown,
30
that her
seconds, John.
grassroots supporters. Oh, I'm out of time?
30 seconds.
Thank you for a 30-second warning. Perfect. I want to, through this channel and through the city council and the mayor, ask that this public comment period be for 90 days if it's going to start in December, and that there be robust in-person and online events and every effort made and every urging made that those that support a painful alignment come out and positively support your mayor. I may disagree with her, but I want to treat her with the maximum amount of
Thank you, Joe.
respect.
Our time is up.
Okay.
And that's all we have for this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Angie. And now moving on to council comments and liaison reports. Today, we're going to start with Councilmember Schwab.
I have none at this point. We're going to talk about action item 9 later.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
I thought I'd have a little bit. Hi, everybody, and also thank you to the finance team. Yay, congratulations, Mayor. Speaking about ST3 and the alignment and asking all of the questions, I believe I understand a lot of the parties' ideas, and I'm just curious, what would be the harm in studying, and this is a direct question, so if I may ask directly and get an answer if you have time, what might be the harm in studying all of the alignments?
So it's a complicated question to answer here at a council meeting, and I'm happy to provide more information at a later date. But in short, I will say the voters approved a system that goes out to Southwest Industrial Center. The voters did not approve a system that goes up 99 or I-5. So if we were to veer from that system, it is my understanding, we would have to go back out to the voters for approval. So this is very different than other alignment issues that are studied across the system. We look at different alignments along roads or station placement. This is like, we don't need to go to Ballard. We don't need to go to downtown Seattle. We can just go to, West Seattle. It's that big of an alteration, which would require a whole nother vote of the people. Because what the voters did approve was, I think some of the people who've been sending letters have said it's a deviation. It's actually not a deviation. It's the voter-approved package. That is the alignment that I am also advocating for.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. I have many visions for Casino Road. And y'all probably don't want to hear about them right now, so we'll move on. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, thank you. I guess to speak just a moment, one of the things I wanted to say, and thanks to Susie with respect to the Auditor's Award, it's really nice to live in a city where we can assume that stuff is so well done, and it's easy to take for granted. And I guess I connect that slightly to something we take for granted in terms of the existing job center in the Southwest Industrial Area. We've had that there so big, so dominant, so strong in our economy for so long that I think it's easy to take it for granted. What the voters approved, what the intent was to serve that. And as one person had said, our ambition is much bigger than just being a bedroom community for Seattle. So that's why that loop is there. And that's why the elected leadership group is charged with looking at alignments and station locations that are within the bounds of what was originally approved. So that's what we're about. I don't want to go on longer on that. Obviously, if you're interested in more detail, we'll be meeting this afternoon. But I did want to clarify that because I find that sometimes misapprehensions of things come from some just taken for granted kind of assumptions, and I don't want that to persist here. A couple of recent neighborhood meetings I did want to comment on. I want to, for Pinehurst, Beverly Park, and Cascade View, I'd really like to thank the neighborhood leaders and the community members that get involved. That kind of two-way communication helps our city run better, helps us be more responsive, and it helps us to make better decisions. So thanks to those neighborhood groups, all of them, but especially the ones that just hosted me. Last night at the Pinehurst Beverly Park meeting, their guest was, as speaker was Garth Fell, the county auditor, who, interestingly enough, doesn't do auditing. They do records and they do elections, and I wanted to speak real briefly just about elections. All of us can become election observers, and of course the critical nature of voting, Garth encouraged everybody to do that, but also to consider getting involved as an election observer. They have only a few of those, and observer responsibilities, or opportunities, I should say, occur from drop boxes all the way through the county. So if you want to do that, the county auditor's site has links to that. You don't need to get permission. This is something that you can do on your own steam, on your own time, at various phases in that. So it's a great way to get involved and to verify that our elections are the truest and fairest out there. I think that's it for me for tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Fosse.
Thanks. I'll be brief. I just want to also express my appreciation to Susie and our finance team, and that's just fabulous. I was able to attend this last week, the Historical Commission, which was a little bit longer of a meeting, and I wanted to also just put my appreciation out there for volunteers who volunteer for these different roles. It's important work that you do, and just wanted to say that. We were also able to have a planning committee meeting recently where we went over some code enforcement changes that eventually will be coming before council, so I won't dive too much into that, but it sounds like they are much needed and long overdue, and will be a good step in the right direction for more efficiency. So we'll have that come forward soon. That's all.
Great, thank you. And Councilmember Ryan.
Great. Hi, everybody. Congrats to the mayor and Susie and team for the Auditor's Stewardship Award. That's really impressive, and I think a big badge of honor, so I hope that there's some sort of plaque or something exciting that we could hang up to be reminded of the great work that's being done. So thank you for that. I wanted to give folks a heads up and a reminder that applications for the city's boards and commissions are now open. So if folks listening are interested in serving in a greater capacity with the city, they're open until November 18th. So take a look at the board listing online to see if there's anything that's a good fit. Later, I guess tomorrow, not later this week, tomorrow, Emma Ewell is having their grand opening ceremony at 4 o'clock and ribbon cutting. And so as Parks Board Liaison, I'm excited to join. And I know Mayor Franklin will be there as well. And it's just a really amazing park named after a really amazing woman. So I'm excited to join for that event. I wanted to give a mention about last week's Week Without Driving. It wrapped up on Sunday, and it was a really interesting experience. It's put on every year, or it's the second year that's been put on by the Washington State Disability Rights Coalition, and it's a great way just to look at mobility and transportation around the city through a different lens, and through the lens of people who either can't drive or don't drive. And so it was just, would recommend folks take a day to just look at their sidewalks and their streets and bikeability and walkability just through the lens of people that might not have the same physical capabilities that we do. On Monday, Monday, I attended the Council of Neighborhoods meeting, and it was a hybrid meeting at the train station. I joined virtually, and some folks, including Mayor Franklin, were there in person. And I just want to give a shout out to PIPA for the hard work for the logistics behind the scenes to get the microphones and cameras and everything set up, and online streaming. So great work to her. And thanks to everybody that joined. Also on Monday, the Economic Development Committee met, and we discussed our projects that are going to be up for consideration later today. And I also wanted to take a mention too before this afternoon's elected leadership group meeting about the sound transit alignment. I think that with the number of emails that we've been receiving and the online petitions that I've been seeing and just the rumblings from the community, I think it's worth studying the alternate alignments. I think that what was put before voters in the Sound Transit 3 alignment was either light rail or no light rail. So I think an advisory vote from the community to see what the community does want would be helpful in the matter. So I'd love to see that the community, especially the community from the Casino Road neighborhood, it gets listened to as well. So those are my comments. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And again, I want to thank and congratulate Susie and team and all the staff that work hard on all of our financing. I've known for years you're doing a super job, so it's not a big surprise, but congratulations and job well done on that. I was able to schedule the Public Safety Committee meeting. We just did that this morning, so I haven't had a chance to email it to the committee members. It'll be October 12th at 5 p.m. And so the Parks Director as well as the Chief of Police will be there. We'll talk about public safety and all of our parks. So that will be our only agenda item. And with that, we'll move on. Do we have an administrative update this afternoon?
Thank you. Nothing this afternoon.
Okay. And City Attorney, Mr. Hall.
Good afternoon. There's no report from legal, and we are not requesting an executive session. Thank you.
Okay. So now moving on, do we have a motion for the 9 consent items?
Councilmember Ryan so moves.
Thank you.
Seconded.
All right, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes. Now we're moving on to our action items. Item number 9, adopt a joint resolution in support of determining the feasibility of developing an Everett outdoor multipurpose stadium. And I believe, should we go ahead? I can't remember if we should do the motion first or have Schwab, Councilmember Schwab talk first.
I'm going to have Councilmember Schwab speak.
Okay, we'll move to Councilmember Schwab then.
Okay, thank you for that. I am so honored to introduce this resolution. This resolution is going to launch a collaborative effort with Snohomish County government. And I am just very thankful for the Snohomish County Executive, their office, and the Snohomish County Council. We've just had a wonderful working relationship over the years. So I'm very excited about what's yet to come and what we're about to announce. I trust these results because of the relationship that we've had with them and I think our Everett community is going to benefit such a great deal. This effort to do a joint study to look at a new multi-purpose stadium for the Everett Aqua Sox is because the beloved Aqua Sox find themselves in a dilemma. The dilemma came when the Major League Baseball reconfigured the minor league system. Through this discovery, I think we're very thankful here in Everett that we have a team still in place. I know several wonderful cities lost their minor league team, and I'm thankful that we still have our Aqua Sox. First, because of the realignment process, the Aqua Sox seasons was extended. It's no longer the short season, it's a long season. We now have 66 games scheduled, almost twice as many as we had before. Second, the Aqua Sox were given new stadium requirements. The Major League Baseball stadium requirements are expansive and basically affecting all aspects of their stadium. But there are some good things to the requirements. Many upgrades are meant to provide a better experience for those who attend, more inclusive facilities, foster a better working environment for the players and the staff. Unfortunately, Funkel Field doesn't fit the bill. To keep the Aqua Sox in Everett, they need to find a new stadium, either on site, which would be really expansive, or somewhere else. Finally, I joined a group. It was a feasibility group of Snohomish County representatives and Everett representatives, and we toured similar cities who recently built a stadium for their minor league team. I went on this tour expecting that we were just looking at just replacing a baseball stadium. What I realized, though, it's so much more than that. I discovered these communities had a multi-purpose facility that was much more. It was a place where families could come and play during the day, during non-baseball time. They were parks. We saw families in the water play area, the fountain area, playground was part of it. We saw joggers and walkers, basically turning the parks into a baseball stadium at night. And it was really great to see. You just don't have to love baseball to enjoy the park and the experience. So I was very thankful for what I experienced. And not only was it a place for family and for a park, but it was also a place for community connections. The facility offered lots of places for the community to have connection, whether it's town halls, whether it's larger events. It also offered opportunity to have different types of sports and really a true multi-purpose facility. And one other thing that really came to light would it really be this stadium that we're looking at, or hopefully, is really an economic centerpiece for the community, especially when it came to housing, which of course is always a challenge in most communities. It really became an attractional place for developers, for people to live and to go on their daily life and enjoy the environment. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. Also, I'd just like to add that one thing that we heard from the tour was the exceptional ownership of the Aqua Sox group. And so I'm very thankful that we have the ownership as we do, that are willing to stay in Everett just about at any point, any cost, and that they really have reached out in a positive and effective way. So I'm confident that our relationship, not only with Snohomish County, but also with the Aqua Sox management team, the ownership team, that will be very successful in this endeavor. So this joint resolution states that the city and county will help, will investigate, will basically create a feasibility group for an outdoor multi-purpose stadium located in the city of Everett, that this outdoor multi-purpose stadium should be built and operated to be inclusive and accessible with a broad range of affordable opportunities for our community. Any outdoor multi-purpose stadium should be built in a location that creates the strongest possible economic multiplier. that has a positive impact on our business community and venues. Thank you.
Okay, so I will now ask for a motion on this.
Ooh, I want to, just
resolution.
kidding, you get to do it, right?
No, you have the honor. I spoke a lot.
I make a motion to get this thing rolling.
All right, is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, so before I call on council members, Angie, do we have anyone to speak on this?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Can I just add, we do have
Yes.
ownership here, and Danny, of course, who operates the stadium. And so to reiterate Councilmember Schwab's point, on our tour of other stadiums, I can't share enough how positive everyone spoke of our Everett Aqua Sox, our owners and our operator, we are very fortunate as a community to have such incredible leadership of our minor league baseball team, and look forward to partnering and working with you for years to come in the future. So thank you for being here today as well.
All right, do I have any questions or comments from the rest of council? Anyone? Yes, Councilmember Zarlingo.
This summer I took my family to the game as well. Had a great time, and I guess one thing that's worth noting in this is that whether or not you're a devoted baseball fan, and I'm actually not, I just enjoy it, that it's a great opportunity for a family outing that doesn't carry the kind of price tag that go into the Mariners games or the other major league games do. Also, though, happy to hear that the Aqua Sox have a great relationship with the Mariners as well. But I want to speak just very briefly to Councilmember Schwab's comment about the commitment of ownership here. They're talking about a long-term commitment to Everett and a study here that's going to evaluate whether this whole thing can work out financially for us. I just don't think there's any dispute that it's going to be a great benefit to the city and a chance to focus our growth in a really productive way for both younger and older people in areas where they'll have an amenity of the downtown recreation opportunity in the stadium. Also, that kind of development and that kind of density is what allows other parts of our cities to stay with the kind of lower density that they have. That balance, I think, is key to positive growth in Everett and a big ambition in this case. So I'm happy to see this, happy to support it, and looking forward to a good job by the feasibility study.
Okay, Councilmember Vogely.
I want to reiterate all of the wonderful words spoken, and my excitement for this does not make it less genuine. So I am super thrilled to see you all in the audience, and I know that the general manager is very. The word, he's all over the place at games, and it speaks a lot to the amount of professionalism and good humor and economic vitality that they bring and will continue to bring to the city of Everett. Thank you.
Well, I just have, anybody else? I just have a quick question on the feasibility study. Will this include any of the financing on this project?
I believe so. Dan Ernest, I'm seeing a nod, so
Okay.
yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the burden of this project doesn't fall on our residents that live here, because a lot of them can't afford anything extra, so I'll be watching that piece of it, but I think it's a great idea, but I just want to make sure that we are mindful of our residents, so.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Okay.
Council Vice President.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yeah, do we have a timeline of how long or an expectation of how long the feasibility study might take and what all would be included in that?
There we go. Dan Ernest, Economic Development Director. We will be launching this immediately upon the approval of the joint resolution. The county council approved it this morning, and with the approval that we're hoping to have today, we'll launch the feasibility. We've actually already contracted for an economic impact study by community attributes of the current existing Aqua Sox, just to give a kind of a baseline to start from. We included too the arena, just to get an idea of what's happening there too, just for our ongoing support of these kind of economic drivers for our community. The Aqua Sox themselves are on a short leash timeline. They have to start reporting to Major League Baseball significant progress toward getting their stadium under compliance. And this joint resolution is a great step forward, but Major League Baseball will have to start seeing real steps that include financing packages and so forth. We've been committing to do this without additional taxes. So, this is not something we're considering on, funding by anything like that. So it'll have to be a private, public partnership going forward.
Okay. Anything else?
So the feasibility study, will there be, does the council need to approve any funding for the completion of the study?
I can imagine that might come forward in the future, but not at this point.
Thanks.
Okay. And just to clarify, Councilmember Schwab did introduce this motion, and will, on the record, Councilmember Vogely will second the motion. So thank you for that. Any other questions? Oh, Councilmember Fosse.
Thank you, Councilmember Ryan, for asking the clarifying cost questions that I had. I wanted to thank Councilmember Schwab for that excellent detail on this, and for management for being here. I'm really looking forward and glad to have the support of the Snohomish County Council and to work in partnership with, in collaboration with the county on this. So that's a really big deal, and we are definitely lucky to have the Aqua Sox here and as partners in the future. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for all of the above.
All right, thank you. And with that, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Go Frogs, yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes. And the Mayor?
Clerk, I believe I also have to vote on this because I signed it as well.
Mayor Franklin.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to action item number 10, adopt resolution concerning the 2023 Human Needs Priorities on September 28th, 2022. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
Sorry, yes, so moved.
Councilmember Schwab, second.
Okay. Are there any questions? Seeing none?
Oh,
Clerk, will you please take the roll?
I'm sorry, I have questions.
Oh, all right. Take that back. We have questions from Councilmember Ryan.
Do we have a presentation tonight?
No, we gave a presentation.
Okay. Oh, my apologies, I'm way ahead on the agenda, sorry.
Okay. We're good to go? Okay. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Vice President Tui.
Yes. Now we're moving on to our council briefing agenda. These items come before City Council serving as a council committee of the whole and are likely to be scheduled at a future meeting. Item 11 is Council Bill 2209-40. This is the first reading approving the appropriations of the 2022 revised City of Everett budget and amending ordinance number 3871-22. Amendment, third and final reading will be on October 12th, 2022. And we have our famous Susie here today.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid I'm going to need a little assistance from Pipa to change over the screen. Thank you, Pipa. Wrong one. Would it be that one? Then let's. Thank you very much. So this afternoon, we have our second amendment to the 2022 budget. And in total, we'll be amending the budget by $17.2 million, which includes 1.6 for the general government and 15.6 for non-general government funds. Starting with general government amendments, we have 2 Department of Commerce grants for planning. These grants will help fund implementation of the Housing Action Plan, including developing incentives to encourage construction of additional affordable market rate housing in a variety of types and prices, and planning efforts around middle housing. The police department also received a couple of small grants for counterterrorism training and basic marine law enforcement training. Fire received a Department of Commerce grant for spill prevention, preparedness, and response equipment. And Municipal Arts received a Snohomish County Tourism and Lodging Tax grants to support horticulture, and a lodging tax grant and donations to support the 4th of July celebration. We're also requesting a $98,000 amendment to fund maintenance costs for the city's new grant management system, which supports our CDBG, CHIP, and Human Needs Grant Administration, and software for lease management, which is needed to comply with new governmental accounting standards, board reporting requirements for leases. Our legal department was successful in obtaining $61,000 in insurance recoveries for traffic signal damage repairs. The amendment will appropriate the expenditure necessary to pay for the repairs. We're proposing an amendment of $8,000 for police overtime support for council, and this will cover a partial year. A full year has been included in the proposed 2023 budget. In 2021, the IAFF and city settled a new collective bargaining agreement in which a new specialty designation of rescue swimmer was added. And this agreement was settled after the budget process was complete, so the startup costs for this program were not included in the original 2022 budget. This amendment will increase the training and personnel protection equipment budget for that program. Fire also received reimbursement from the Seattle Fire Department for training costs associated with structural collapse rescue, which is part of their continued required continuing education. And I think I mentioned this last week, jail fees are exceeding budget at an increasing rate this year, both in number of inmates and housing days are driving the cost upward. The number of inmates through July are up 43% over the same period in 2021, and housing days are up over 49%. The courts once again are now again able to issue bench warrants, which is impacting the level of this activity. And however, even with this amendment, jail expenditures are still not up to pre-pandemic levels. And next, we have the distribution of the general government vacancy offset. The vacancy offset was distributed from the non-departmental fund to the funds where the vacancies have actually occurred, including police, facilities, municipal court, IT, parks, and the library. All open positions are being actively recruited. None are being intentionally held open. The last general government is for labor changes that have taken place this year. Changes include reorganizations among departments, the addition of new FTEs, increases in hours for part-time staff, and reclassifications for staff who have been assigned new responsibilities. For non-general government proposed amendments, we start with $553,000 for CIP1 to fund the fire station 2 Phase 2 renovation, an HVAC renovation at the main library, and a renovation of the restroom and locker room at the South Precinct. For CIP3, we have $2.5 million in amendments for new playground equipment at Thornton Sullivan Park, a new roof for the Silver Dome, funding for the Silver Lake Trail, and the annual street overlay. Parks will be making improvements to the Lowell Riverfront Off-Leash Park and is asking to appropriate $83,000 from its reserve fund. The city has had a couple of large settlements and an overall increase in workers' comp claims. We are proposing an amendment of just under $3 million to cover those costs. Due to the 2-year build time for fire trucks, we placed an early order for the trucks that were targeted to be replaced next year. At this point, we don't expect those trucks to be delivered to us and in service until 2024. So we'll be bringing forward reappropriations to carry forward the authority as necessary until we take delivery and make final payment. The cost of fuel has increased significantly this year, I think, as we're all aware. The Motor Vehicle Division purchases fuel for the city on a competitive contract and then sells it to departments. A budget amendment of $1.7 million is necessary to cover the additional costs in our Motor Vehicle Fund 501, and we're watching all other funds to see if an amendment will be necessary in Budget Amendment number 3 later this year. The city purchased grant management and contract management software in 2021, and implementation costs are exceeding the original estimates. So this amendment will fund those additional costs. Last May, council received a briefing and adopted a resolution in support of moving forward with the list of projects on this slide to be funded from our ARPA award. This amendment provides the formal spending authority. The amount of this amendment matches the allocations in that resolution. When the Carl Gibson Senior Center was managed by the city, revenues were collected from table tennis players and donations to support membership scholarships for low-income members and to purchase supplies for table tennis. This amendment will provide the necessary budget authority in the Senior Center Reserve Fund to reimburse the Volunteers of America when they purchase table tennis supplies and provide memberships to low-income seniors. The next amendment increases the EMS budget to pay for repairs to a damaged medic unit. The city will be reimbursed for the damage by the responsible party. And that was the last amendment. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Susie, any questions from council? Councilmember Fosse.
Hi, thank you for that. Appreciate it. I was curious, the inmate percentage, you said it was up 43% from 2021. How is that compared to like a prior to pandemic year?
Well, we are not up to our pre-pandemic levels. We're projecting this year to finish around $3 million in jail fees, and we were at, I believe it was about 4.7 million in 2019, so we're still significantly below that. There are still legislative changes that took place that impact the level of jail activity, but the ability of the courts to issue bench warrants has increased the activity from pandemic levels.
And I see the percentages. Approximately how many inmates does that transfer to? Is it an approximate number of how many we have?
I'm going to have to look at the records and get that to you.
Okay. I also had a question. This likely is not going to pertain to 2022, but was there any discussion or follow-up as far as when it comes to the labor vacancy, looking at the part-time position for a council policy person? Has that been brought up or brought forward as far as an open? Is it, okay, have you heard anything, I guess, for the future budgets for 2023 or forward?
So that would likely be something that you all would propose in your work on the budget if you wanted so I don't do your budget. You would as a group make changes or alterations working together with your council administrator. Okay. So I've in the past suggested that might be a helpful person for you, but other than make general references that it might be a position that council would want at some point, it would be up to the council to decide as a whole if that is a position that you want to fund and then find the funding for it.
Okay, so then there hasn't been any additional conversation on that. That's the information I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, Councilmember Vogely.
I was also curious about the jail fees and just wanted to, I guess my word of the day is reiterate that jail time costs money. And the more people we put in jail, the higher the price is for the city. So I'm putting that out there. Take it as you will. And then the other one was overtime to support council meetings from the police. I like that. I kept hearing, somebody got a grant, they got a grant, they got a grant. And then, is this a grant or is this being asked to come from council budget or what? Have we always paid for overtime for council meetings?
No, this will be new, and this is one of the changes that we are funding from our increased revenue this year, but it is incorporated a full year of police coverage for council has been budget included in the proposed budget for 2023, and our police officers are funded out of the police budget, so all of their labor costs, so that's where the additional overtime is budgeted.
And I suppose too, what I often see the chief here or deputy chief or lieutenants. So I'm imagining that the overtime is through their pay scale.
No, the overtime is actually, these folks unfortunately don't get overtime. They work far more than 40 hours a week. Our deputy chief and our police chief, it is for the officer that is, or a lieutenant or sergeant or whoever is stationed at the door for all of our safety. The deputy chief and the police chief that attend the council meetings are often here to answer our questions, but they are not working a shift they're just additional resources for all of us in leadership positions at the city.
Okay. I didn't know how that worked, so thank you for that. And it's not that much money. I just am curious about it. And, there was one more circle I made. I think other people have questions, so maybe I can come back when I find the note. Is that
We'll see,
accurate, or should I
Councilmember
find
Schwab, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, just for those that are watching. This is a practice that we do every year. We do budget amendments, correct?
Correct.
And so do we usually do two, and then an end one, sometimes a third one at the very end, or how does that work?
Typically three.
Three, yeah.
And sometimes more.
Okay. By the way, thank you so much. Congratulations for your staff. They're amazing.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Vogely, you have your question now?
I think so.
Okay.
Just as a follow-up to Councilmember Fosse's question about another employee for the council, I guess I just want conversation, so here we are, we're starting it. It's not really a question, well, maybe it is. So we have an executive assistant to the council, and she is paid for in the budget, great. And she was hired by admin. So how does that work with the answer of we need to figure it out and pay for it when we don't actually figure it out and pay for it?
So all staff in the city report to the mayor's office, to the mayor in some level, right? The council admin assistant I keep kind of at arm's length, not because I don't love Angie, but because she is your staff member, but because you are not full-time, you are all part-time. Lori is her supervisor, right? Together with the council leadership. So council president and council vice president work very closely with Lori on that, but to ensure that she has the support of all the rest of the staff that work at the city, she needs a supervisor that is a full-time person, and so that is Lori. If you want additional staff, I would say that together, the body of the council would discuss and decide if you need additional staff. It's not for me as mayor to decide that you need additional staff. You are a separate department. So when the departments need more staff, they advocate to me and they say, I want more staff and this is what I want more staff for, and then I get to weigh. With you all, I'm not your boss, right? You don't report to me. So it would be up to you to decide as a whole that you would want an additional team member to work with the council. And then, as you're working through the budget process, you would have to find the money, you'd have to make a cut, because I presented the budget to you. So in order to pay the 150,000 salary plus benefits or whatever, I'm just throwing that number out, I have no idea what it would cost. You would have to find 150,000 in the budget that you would take out of another department, recommend whatever, and then together you could also decide how that person would be supervised. I might suggest if you had a policy analyst and not report to Lori, but report to legal. So.
Thank you very much. That is a lot to think about. And so just, yeah, publicly speaking, I think we've started that conversation. And so now everybody knows.
Okay.
And that is all. Thank you.
All right, and just so everybody knows, the council does have an annual budget, and I think it's about $30,000 a year, if I might be mistaken, for all of our travel and expenses like that. So there is a budget in there. We've used it before for some studies or whatever, things like that. We helped with the districting expenses. So, you know, when council president gets back, we can have that discussion on what that is, how much we anticipate travel to be when we do different things. And that's part of that budget. So that would be a conversation that we can have when she gets back. Any other questions, Councilmember Schwab?
Yeah, just to address some of the discussion points, we are getting a copy of the budget. So we will all have an opportunity to read through it. And we also have 3 public meetings. So that will give us opportunity to have more discussion on any particular adjustments or amendments that the council wants to do.
Okay, and I just had one quick question, Susie, on the jail fees. It would be interesting to know, I know we're looking at where we were in 2019, but I know the costs have really skyrocketed. So it would be just interesting for all of us to see per inmate, you know, what was the average expense then versus now. And that will show that we're really a lot fewer inmates that we're sending to jail, but it's costing us a lot more per person.
That's very true, and we do have that data, so we can prepare something for you to
Great.
review.
Thank you. Any other questions for Susie? Oh, Councilmember Ryan.
Hi, thank you, Susie. I was curious if any of these adjustments or if any of these numbers reflect a plus or minus in FTEs or shifting in departments of FTEs.
Yes, the last general government amendment is an aggregate number for a number of labor changes that have occurred, and it's actually all of the above of what you mentioned. So we've had some reorganizations of departments, so people moving back and forth. We've increased some part-time labor hours. We have reclassified a few employees whose responsibilities have changed, and in recognition of the additional responsibilities, and then we've added a couple of positions.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Anything else? One last chance. All right. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you very much.
And now we'll move on to item number 12, adopt a resolution concurring with staff recommendation and authorizing the mayor to implement the next steps of the ARPA-funded projects and initiative listed in the resolution, recital C, action on October 5th, 2022. This item is scheduled for council to take action on October 5th. I just said that. Okay, so Julie Willie is here as our Community Development Director for presenting this afternoon.
Good afternoon. Again, I'm here as kind of the facilitator of the city teams. As you know, we have multiple departments working together to bring forward these ARPA projects. And over the course of the last quarter, we've been putting together some of those projects that you approved back in May. And we wanted to bring you an update of those today. And then I can't see you when I have my glasses on. So, and then we have some other projects that we want to bring forward to you in this resolution for approval so that we can start moving forward on those projects. So I'm just going to wing it. We're going to go through the slides and then we can pull up other people if you have questions that I'm not able to answer. And hopefully by the end of our time, you'll have all the information you need. Mayor Franklin is also here. I know that she has kind of a bigger picture sometimes that she'll offer us, and we've also had the opportunity to talk to many of our council liaison groups, and so a lot of these projects are not new to all of you, but they may be new to some of you. And as Council Vice President Tui said, we hope that you'll move to action next week, but if for some reason we might need to pull or make changes or provide more information, we're certainly prepared to do that as well. So with that, I just wanted to kind of give an overview of where we're at today. The previously authorized amount is in the amount of $7,097,734, actually in 31 cents, but this slide doesn't include that 31 cents, so I'll be honest at the get-go. Today, we're going to be requesting the amount of $7,950,000, which will be a total of ARPA funds of $15,047,734. Our total ARPA award was $20,700,000, so that leaves about $5.6 million that has not yet been allocated. So just to give you that framework. The previous approved ARPA projects and initiatives a year ago was when you, some of you that were on council then, approved the purchase of 40 pallets. Then we had a resolution in October that allowed us to move forward with Everett Forward Grant Round 1. And then in May, Susie shared that about $5.6 million of projects that you also approved us to move forward. So to dive in a little bit further on updates, the Everett Forward Grant Round 1, we had 40 grants awarded, and those are each in different stages of implementation. Primarily, our economic development team is working with those small businesses to be successful. Many of them are learning the hard way what federal funds, how hard they are to use, but it's been a great learning opportunity and certainly a great way to engage with small businesses. Service coordination for those that are living unsheltered. Some of us call it Chart 2.0, to provide outreach and navigation to our increased homeless, unhoused, unsheltered population. So to just give you that update, we have hired a city staff person. It's a short-term position. She began in July, and so she's starting to work on getting our coordination together with our community partners so that we can launch the Chart 2.0, as well as working to develop an RFP so that we can actually contract with an outside agency to provide case management to those that our co-ed team is working with who need more assistance and help to stability. So that is moving forward, and thank you. The Everett Point Industrial Center, known as EPIC, Green Bridge Type, Size, and Location Study. The RFP is set to be developed, and that will be coming out by hopefully the winter of 2023. As well, the Digital Permit Accelerator to help address some of the pauses that we've had in our permit services. We've hired apparently a new staff that is awesome and is working to implement new software, so that should be seeing some efficiencies and improvements immediately. And then our Clean Everett program kicked off in July or in June. You may remember we had a Clean Everett Day where a lot of neighborhood engagement, doing pickups and cleanups and such. And that we're working on an RFP right now for a actual partner to do kind of a Clean Everett launch, similar to how we have a Green Everett launch. We want to have a Clean Everett launch, so we have a program that people can be engaged in to help keep our community the way we'd like it to be. And then we also, the C-Click Fix app was a part of that bundle as well, and IT is in the process of hiring a new project manager, and when that person comes on board, this will be one of their first projects to do. We're also making sure that we align it with the new software that the Public Works Department is getting so that we don't get ahead of ourselves. Those two projects will be integrated together, and so it makes more sense to let Public Works kind of get a little bit further in their process, and then we'll jump on that bandwagon with them. So before I go on, just thought, any questions on these? I don't know. Call it my colleagues if so. All right. Next, update is the pallet expansion. Just wanted to give you a little bit more details. I know sometimes it's challenging to keep track of all of the different projects that we have going on. And so just in overview, the EGM pallet site, right, that was our first one. They now exist with 20 pallets, and they are finalizing all of the site additions with the new bathrooms. They're building up their occupancy to get 40 people in there. And they continue to help teach us about those that have been living chronically unhoused, and even the differences in those populations, and that some of the individuals are really ready for stability, for services, to think about their future, and others have so many challenging behavioral health problems that they're not even able yet to stabilize. And so it's interesting to learn, and I'm really grateful for the gospel mission to help continue to help us understand the challenges that exist with that population. The Faith Family Village is the 8 pallets designated for families at the Faith Lutheran campus. They did a land use application, and in September had to go in front of the hearing examiner. The hearing examiner approved their modifications. Modifications were pretty minimal, but the modifications did include allowing people under 18 to live at that shelter, so that was a primary one. And a little bit about the fencing and the keeping the site secure and things like that were really the other modifications that needed to be included. This project, because I probably didn't know enough about federal appropriations 2 years ago when we asked for federal appropriations dollars, and then lo and behold, we got it. So this little $250,000 that we've been granted for this project has made it pause. And so now we really have to wait until we do the environmental review. Once we do the environmental review, we have to submit the application. Once we submit the application, it's 90 to 120 days. Once we get that, then we can start spending money. So sadly, it's a little bit of a slow project, but I'm optimistic that in early 2023, it will be up and running. And then the final site that is still being considered is the location at the Cemex, old Cemex site on Glenwood and Seavers Juicy. Volunteers of America is currently working on a land use application. They'll be submitting that, and their intention is to house women and their children back to permanent housing is the goal of that program, and to ensure safety for kids and opportunities for women to become employed and become back out into the community. They have done original engagement activities in the community to try and share with the community what their plans are. But to this point, we don't have a land use application. Once we get a land use application, there'll be more formal opportunities for people to give their public comments. And so we'll just want to make sure that you're aware of when those public comment opportunities are available as well. So that's my update on pallet today. All right, you guys are easy today, thank you. The next project that it actually will be, it's an update for the past allocation, but it's also on our request for today. I think you know that we've been looking to site restrooms in our downtown area for our increased tourism, our increased events, and also for our increased activity of people coming and going in our city. The staff have vetted about 30 different locations. That includes facilities leading that charge, but with Public Works and with police, and certainly Mayor Franklin and her staff have been involved in these conversations. And so we've dialed it down to, and we've also actually consulted with our Downtown Business Association and the business owners, through the Downtown Everett Association. And so there are 4 locations that we're currently interested in placing bathrooms. Some of the bathrooms will be a singular, like up in that corner. It's similar to a Portland Loo. It's just a singular restroom. It doesn't even have a sink. It would just have hand sanitizer. Really open, really safe. A couple of the locations would have that type. And then like a park setting may have more of a structure like that is below. And so those are the 4 locations that we're looking at.
And I just want to add that this is something that has been on our agenda since the Community Streets Initiative in 2013, and I am incredibly excited about having restrooms downtown. And I think the type of restrooms that we're looking at are safe and accessible by all members of our population that might need a restroom. And so very, very excited that staff have put this together and look forward to opening some of them with your approval. And Councilmember Dunn from the county funded one of these through county ARPA funds. So we can thank Councilmember Dunn and the county for the funding for one of these restrooms.
Well, in my job, I don't get a lot of enthusiasm, but with this one, everybody's really excited about bathrooms, so I'm calling it a win. All right, so, oops, sorry, quick thumbs. Okay, so I guess I should just stop and pause. Those are the updates from to date. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to what we're proposing for today and what we're asking for in the resolution. Yes, oh, nope, you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just step back a little bit about the pallet expansion projects, obviously. We've communicated over the months, and I really appreciate it. It's I get a lot of feedback from our community over these. I read through the management plan for Site 2 at the Faith Family Village. I thought the requirements were quite extensive. These programs aren't for the chronic homeless, are they? They're for individuals that made a choice and a little more stabilized in their life and making a choice to better themselves. Is that a good?
Well, the Faith Family Village, each of them are different, and that's just something we want to keep making sure our community understands, that not every pallet community is what we have at the Everett Gospel Mission, nor is every pallet site suitable for every population. So the Faith Family Village is in collaboration with the Interfaith Shelter, and Interfaith Shelter runs our current homeless family shelter here in Everett and our Cars to Housing, and they only want that site to be temporary for 90 days because they are successful in helping people to find rapid rehousing and to get into permanent housing. And so the intention of that site is to house those individuals. You know, maybe they start in a car, and then if a pallet becomes available, they'll move to the pallet, and then if the shelter becomes available, they'll move to the shelter, and then by 90 days or 120 days, ideally they'll be into permanent supportive housing. So very different population than those behind the.
I think that's a misnomer by some of our residents. They think it's the same thing as the shelter in the men's shelter in downtown. We're looking something similar for Site 3. Is that my understanding? There'll be a management plan?
Absolutely. Yep. And Site 3 is a little bit different because it's a little longer term. Volunteers of America is modeling it after their Maud's house in Marysville, where they work really intensively with mothers and their children on their goals and their needs. So each person may have a little bit different plan. Some may be going through treatment, some may be working on sobriety, some may be trying to get education, some may be ready for workforce. And Volunteers of America really walks alongside and really helps them to stabilize while they're also supporting their kids and making sure their kids have childcare or access to ECAP or access to elementary school, you know, and so to get them, so kids can be stable. Addressing student homelessness is still a priority in Mayor Franklin's administration, and this is another way that we're trying to make sure that kids have stability and on roads to, you know, better opportunities.
And we're expecting a pretty extensive management plan, including guest requirements also for this location.
Yeah,
and that will be something that city staff will review and determine if it's appropriate.
Yeah, and the hearing examiner and the planning commission, I mean, there's a lot of review that takes place of those processes.
Right. Just one other thought, if it's possible, if you could expand the announcement when we get to the hearing examiner. I'm not sure about the range of adjacent properties. I'm not sure about all the rules, but if there could be a slight expansion.
I think the requirement for announcement is 500 feet.
Okay.
I don't know that I can change that, sir, but I can certainly encourage Volunteers of America to expand, you know, their outreach.
That would be good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the next, get my notes out here. Whoops, I did it again. Sorry. Jeez, Julie. Okay. Many of these have been brought to your attention before as priorities that came out of the work that we did last year to understand the needs that we were facing in our city. The first project that we would like to move forward on is the idea of creating a day center or a service center or additional shelter in the city of Everett, in particular to serve the north and central area and to provide access for services and a place for people to be outside of the elements. We have been talking with community partners who are interested in leading this endeavor. And before we move forward with those individual agencies, we want to know that council continues to want to move forward in that area, and we want to allocate as much as $2 million to create a 2-year pilot program that will be staffed and have access to services. Potentially, it could serve as an emergency overnight site in cold weather. It could serve as a meal site. It could serve as a medical outreach site. All of those conversations are on the table with true commitment to benefit the city of Everett residents and to not impact the neighborhoods and the businesses around it. So that is the first project that we're bringing forward. The second one is to, as ARPA dollars are an opportunity to maybe improve city assets and then utilize them in a near term or a pilot opportunity. But then if it doesn't work out, we've put some infrastructure and some investment in place. And so the Silver Lake, not supposed to call it that. The Thornton A. Sullivan Park caretaker house is one of those buildings that could use some support and a facelift and a renovation. And we'd like to spend $500,000 to do that. And then we'd like to utilize that as our case management office. We're growing and we don't have a lot of space. And so the idea would be that we could renovate that building and we could place our case managers there. It would be their little satellite office. It could also be a satellite office for co-ed if they're in the area working with an individual and needed to pop in. The intention is to not have it be a drop-in center or a day center. It would be, if there's any appointments, it'd be by appointment only. And that is our proposal. Facilities is also here that, they can definitely share more details on kind of what they're thinking in regards to securing the perimeter and, fixing the landscaping so it's not, covered up. And there's, a lot of things that need to be done there. We'd also like to increase the mental health support that we have available to our residents. We are awaiting kind of an alternative response, a behavioral health emergency crisis response, but the county and the region is not quite there yet as a collective. How are we going to use the 988 legislative funds? How is the BHASO going to support these kinds of efforts? And so we don't want to wait. We want to jump in, and we want to jump in. We've had super success with having our social workers embedded in our fire department. And so this project would like to expand on that concept and embed 2 mental health professionals in our fire department and 2 mental health professionals in our library. And they would become one team that are helping to support the behavioral health challenges of all of our residents, whether they're unhoused, whether they're habitual users of 911, or whether they're using our library and could use intervention and prevention opportunities and support. So that's the next project. Again, it's a 2-year pilot, which includes a little bit of money for renovating the fire station office, a little bit of money maybe for a car, a little bit of money for some software and things like that, as well as the staff. And also a little bit of client support flex funds would be in that as well. At the request of Mayor Franklin, she'd like to see us invest more money in our human needs priorities that you approved just a few minutes ago. We'd give $4 per capita to that fund, and this would add an additional $100,000 that would go out to our nonprofits that are working in the areas of homelessness and housing and behavioral health. Everett Forward Round 2, this resolution would allow $1 million more for Everett Forward grants. We're calling it Everett Forward Round 2, and your authority would allow us to move forward with that grant process in 2023. And then let's see, I need my glasses again here. $1 million to support residents who have been delinquent with their utility accounts, and utilizing our low-income assistance program that is administered through Catholic Community Services. That program has got some pretty stringent requirements, and so you really have to have a high threshold of low income, and it might not meet the needs of all of the residents that we have that will benefit from delinquent payments being removed from their accounts. And so we don't have the exact details of what that program will look like. It may work with Catholic, it may have to be a standalone program, but we do know that the benefit will be for our low-income residents so that they don't end up with delinquent bills and liens on their homes and potentially inability to stay housed. So it really it's a long-term prevention of homelessness. So before I go on to the next slide, would you like me to pause and let you ask questions about these ones? Hopefully from my colleagues.
Councilmember Schwab.
Yeah, a quick question. We're talking about utility loss. Was there some thought into putting perhaps property taxes that are in delinquent form? I know there are some residents that were affected by the pandemic and couldn't pay their property taxes. I just wonder if that was...
No,
okay.
I'll answer
All
that.
right.
No, we didn't consider that. It's really, there's a large number of folks that have been delinquent on utilities, and so that's what we've been focused on.
And that makes sense because there's plenty of need already.
Okay, Councilmember Vogely.
The case management, The case management 2-year thing, we've talked about it before. I like it, I support it, all of that good stuff. And then I think when Susie was talking about amendments, there was somebody hired in July. I'm getting confused. I'm not sure if those are in the same type of program, because I think that person, I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, the case management coordinator was definitely hired in July, so
Okay.
I'll assume that's who you're talking about.
Okay.
And Susie probably had that in there because we have to pay her now because she's here, so.
And so is that person part of this pilot, or is that different?
That person was part of the case management chart 2.0 outreach/net navigation that you've already allocated.
Okay.
Previously in May, you granted that.
Okay.
So this is all future programming.
Yeah, so the case management is case management. What you see here with the mental health support, those are social workers.
Oh, okay.
And so just like the embedded social workers with our co-ed team that are with the police department, we want to embed social workers with the library
Right.
and fire. But that they're
That's
not
what this
case
is.
managers. Social workers are more like short-term support for folks, and case managers can work with folks for a much longer period of time. And so the idea would be we would do a warm handoff between our social workers and the case management 2.0. So if there's somebody who really needs a lot more care and support, they would move to the funding that you already approved that we've started to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you for that clarification. That's all right now.
All right. And did Councilmember Zarlingo, you had your hand up earlier.
I think my questions have been mostly answered. It sounds like the increasing demands on the fire department and the library in these areas are being met by this. I mean, the way those demands are evolving and the skills needed in that area. So I guess if that's how I see it, that was my only question.
Okay. Councilmember Fosse.
So with the kind of workforce shortages that we're seeing with mental health professionals, social workers, et cetera, there's a timeline on when this needs to be spent, yes? So what happens if we have long-standing vacancies where we're not able to fill those roles, or do you anticipate that being a problem?
We have till 2026 to expend these funds, so
Okay.
we have a little bit of time. And because they're about 2-year pilots, we have, worst case scenario, we don't get them hired until 2024, and then we have 2 years.
Okay, that helps, thanks.
All right. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thanks, Julie. I have a question about the Human Needs Fund, since we just approved some. Will this be rolled into a future allocation, or will there be a special convening of the community group? Is it a community advisory group, citizens advisory group?
Yeah, no, I think we will be able to roll it into the process will be the same. It will just have more money to distribute. One of the nuances is that the ARPA funds come with ARPA rules. And so some of the agencies may not be able to abide by those rules or be able to, accommodate the reporting and such. So we would use the general fund dollars specifically for those, but some of the agencies that it's old hat to use federal funding, we could allocate the money to them. So it helps some of our smaller nonprofits as well to have more access to greater funds that are a little easier.
Great. I'm really excited for the public toilets and for increased mental health support. And I've been hearing that there might be a need for embedded social workers with our Parks Department as well. So I was curious if that's covered by COET now, or if of course, there's always room for more social workers, but just how the Parks Department might be able to be a good partner allocation for this as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to, you have to organize it some way, but I absolutely know that the encampment work that we do and the work that COET does interdepartmentally with community development, with public works, with parks, and we're a pretty good team. And so as we build this kind of community support team out, I know that we'll be collaborating alongside of all of the departments because many of the individuals affect multiple departments or interact with multiple departments. And so hopefully by having social workers throughout the city, that they'll be able to also connect as a team to do care planning and coordination for these individuals that multiple departments are getting. So I see it as a benefit.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Fosse.
Since we're on the subject of public toilets, that's fantastic news about County Councilmember Dunn and the additional funding provided for this. So, awesome. How many are all of these sites that are listed? Are we thinking that is the quantity that you're going for? Or these are just potential sites for?
These are the first four.
These are the first four. So
We'll bring more later.
First 4 locations, but 2 of the locations may have 2 toilets. So there could be as many as 6 toilets in 4 locations.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
And I just have one question before we move on to the last half of these. On the Everett Forward grant, have they established any focus for this round of grants yet?
So Dan Ernestine is here. We have not, but the first round of Everett Forward grants were so wildly popular and we had so many applications and we would have loved to fund all of them. And so at that time, our staff team said we really need to be able to do this again to help some of the organizations that continue to struggle. I'll use restaurants as an example. Restaurants are bouncing back, but they aren't back yet. The county is still remote for the most part, and that's our largest downtown employer. And so until we have more opportunities for those restaurants to expand and do what they do, these types of opportunities, and it's not just for restaurants, it's for any small businesses, but my guess is that the Economic Development Committee would be working closely with Dan Ernestine and the team, but hopefully it's similar to the last round because we had so many applicants.
Okay, great. All right, continue on.
Okay. So the next projects support our public safety. The first one being an incentive-based program for people who have unwanted firearms and guns to be able to incentivize them to bring them to a safe, secure place. A lot of people don't know what to do with guns that they no longer have. About $25,000 would be invested to purchase gift cards. It's similar to a program that Kirkland did and one that they had a lot of success in. And the hope is also to do a public information campaign alongside of it so that we can support safe gun ownership and use. The next one is the use of $400,000 as a design study for the renovation of the Colmback building, and to be able to use that as the police evidence storage room for the Everett Police Department. The space is large enough to incorporate for future development and growth if we so choose. And the current evidence room is costing our city a lot of money. It is not a safe environment, and it is we haven't been able to find any other location to rent or utilize in the vicinity, and so we'd like to move forward with that project. The next one is the fire training facility design. It's a facility that would be supporting both our Everett Fire Department as well as the Everett Navy Base and all of the requirements that they have for their firefighting staff and actually their general soldiers to learn about fire safety and other needs in Snohomish County. There's a federal grant opportunity, and so one of the things in order to secure that federal grant would be to have a viable design, and so these funds would help pay for that. Remember how excited you were about the bathrooms, but we're asking you for more money to do the bathrooms. We asked you for $500,000 in the past, and you approved that, but that was for 1 or 2 bathrooms. We want to do 4 to 6 bathrooms, and so the project is a total of $1.5 million at this point for that many bathrooms, and so that would be the $500 that you approved before. It would be the $750,000 that we're asking for you today, and then it would also include the $250,000 that Councilmember Dunn has allocated for a total of $1.5 million. And then the final...
I'm sorry, that would then cover 6 bathrooms?
4
Different-
locations and 6
Oh,
bathrooms.
okay, the
'cause we're-
same 4 locations,
Yes.
though, not
Yeah,
more than that?
Not more, no,
Okay.
it would, that,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
I know the slide was deceiving because I made it seem like we were going to do all of it for $500,000, but it's not true. And with inflation and with design, I mean, there's just so many variables, so we'll keep you posted, but that's our dream goal right now is 6 toilets in 4 locations. And so then the final one is to provide support for an urban tree forest inventory that Parks is leading at the tune of $300,000.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions here. Councilmember Zarlingo?
I'm all for public toilets. I think it helps keep things civil and going well and for our tourists and our residents. But I also know that public toilets are a thorny thing from the standpoint of their use and their maintenance and that sort of thing. And my knowledge of that is years old in terms of when Seattle was doing some of that kind of stuff. Do you feel like there are recent learnings? Do you feel like there's good confidence that those things can be installed and maintained and function the way we want to? Are there any particular things we need to pay attention to ordinance-wise or anything like that?
Well, certainly staff have been vetting all of the challenges that could go, and we've been talking about it for a long time, I think as it's been recognized. The Portland Loo style are very easy to clean. We've talked about potentially if there does become an issue that we could close them down in the overnight hours. We've been working with our Downtown Business Association as well. They have their morning crew that comes in, and how that they might be able to alert us if there's any problems. Our facilities and park staff feel like they can incorporate the maintenance and operations into their daily kind of routines. And we're also hoping our downtown will experience excellent vitality, right? We're gonna have residents and businesses that are thriving, and so therefore there'll be more activity and less opportunities for using restrooms illegally or for things that are not meant to.
Yeah, well, I think the contribution to downtown vitality is, unquestioned, and so I'm happy to hear that you've been thinking through all of that. It's not a surprise, but I did want to ask.
Okay, Councilmember Vogely?
For the public safety gun buyback program, when the firearms are not returned because they weren't ours in the first place, when they're given up, what will then happen to said firearms?
One of the deputy chiefs.
Jared? Deputy Chief Jared Irving.
Jared Irving with the police department. If those firearms are taken off the streets like they did in Kirkland, we will take them to our our property room, which I will eventually talk about later, and those will go for destruction. Those are brought over east of the mountains to Spokane, melted down, and no longer in anyone's hands.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
A question for you, Deputy Chief. So are those inventoried and recorded serial numbers and descriptions, so if that's needed for future crime solving? Okay.
And all of the firearms that come through our department into the property room, they're checked for all of that.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Schwab?
Yeah, since I have the chief here, the deputy chief. I'm glad to see that you're making a move to improve your property room. Is $400,000 really enough? I'm assuming it is, but I just wanted to hear it from you.
Well, I don't want to speak on behalf of Susie or Bob Leonard, and I see Bob coming up behind me, so I'm going to defer to Bob.
All right.
Bob Leonard, Parks and Facilities Director. No.
Okay.
$400,000 is not enough. This is really going to start the process and get us through the design phase. We would still need to allocate additional resources for the actual construction.
Okay. Well, I'm excited that we decided to keep the building and that you can find future uses for it. So thank you for working on the project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then I had just one other comment about the fire training facility design. My understanding that we have a good opportunity getting a large grant to working, so this is a great opportunity. Because we're talking about the federal government maybe perhaps spending several $1 million on a project.
Yeah, that's correct. The mayor and I were in Washington DC just a couple weeks ago. We met with the defense office that handles the grant program and walked them through this with materials that Chief DeMarco had prepared. And I think the project will score exceptionally high. The deadline is the end of next June, but the project does have to be close to shovel ready, so we really need designs in order to be competitive, but the project stands on its own in terms of viability and competitiveness with that program.
So it's a good deal for the city.
Great deal.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Ryan?
Great. I'm not sure where to start. Don't go too far, Bob. So I guess I'll start with the police property room, and maybe Deputy Chief can chime in as well. So this is the first that I'm hearing about it. I looked through past ARPA documents. It hadn't been listed, so I'm curious about how it came to be on the list today, and if you could share a little bit more about the project, the need for it, and just some other information other than what's listed on the slide.
Sure. The existing property room located in downtown is actually a leased space that we have. And we've been having several challenges with it over the years, just from a disrepair state. We have several of our AFSCME members that are working in that facility, and it's just not adequate for them to be working in those conditions. And it's not adequate anymore from just a property evidence room type of situation. We currently spend over $10,000 a month, over $120,000 a year to lease that space. That's all general fund dollars. We've been looking for solutions to move the property room for a while. We haven't been able to find any place. I mean, at the time, we were really looking at other leased or rented spaces. When we were trying to figure out what to do, how to make this situation better, we've been looking to try to sell the Comeback at one point, but we haven't had anybody really take us up on our offers to sell the Comeback building. We have this space available. It's in a good location that is adjacent to the precinct. So we feel that we could, I said no, that we don't have the funding. We are estimating that the total project cost would be at about $1.2 million. If we just take the $120,000 a year we're spending, that would pay for itself in 10 years, probably sooner, because we've been trying to hold back the cost. Rents are just going up. It's probably going to be more than $120,000 a year a couple of years from now. So we think that based on the location, based on the real serious need for secure evidence room and good working conditions for our AFSCME staff members, that this was a good project.
And I'd like to also just invite Deputy Chief forward too to talk a little bit more about it to kind of help give you the full detail. But you asked why this came up. I think I'd been in office 6 months when our employees asked me to come visit them in the property room, and I saw the working conditions they're in, and I was mortified. It is really not a safe environment, and there are really no other options that, as we've been looking for years, of where we could locate this. We have a property that we have not been using for years, and so it seemed to make sense, and we had a number of conversations internally. ARPA funding can be used to invest in city facilities, and we are using ARPA funding to invest in city facilities, and so this seemed like one additional one to add to that. But Deputy Chief, I'd love for you to speak a little bit more to the property room.
Sure. Again, Jared Irving with the Police Department. And Julie, I'm going to ask you potentially to switch it over to a PowerPoint for me, because I didn't think it was going to be very good for me to stand in front of you and say, this is what a piece of metal looks like bowing. This is what the water looks like coming down. So what I did is I put a short PowerPoint presentation together for all of you to see what our current property room looks like. And I think pictures are worth 1,000 words, and so that's why I wanted to share this information. As she's working on that, I'll just kind of start talking about that this building was established in 1925 as a cornerstone for the city of Everett. Originally built to be a medical and office building, but over time, as you can see, it's changed into something that is now a lot of space for other customers within the city. Thank you. From the outside looking in, it looks wonderful. But for the Everett Police Department property room staff, they go down an elevator into the basement. And we'll see a little bit of what that looks like as we progress through this. This is our initial walk-in from the public. It's an elevator that goes down. It's a small entranceway to that glass that you see on the right. And that's where property room staff meet our customers, our community members within the city. So that's that first kind of not necessarily a really great vibe customer feeling for our constituents through the city. We have one property room manager and 3 evidence techs, which are our AFSCME employees. As you can see there in the picture to the right, that is just kind of an overall, that is an open view of where our staff works. I will share this, that if you've ever taken an airlines, you will see that pilots will walk around the exterior of their aircraft to make sure there are no issues or areas that are of concern. As we walk through this, our staff, and I hate to use this analogy, is walking into a restroom. And you'll see exactly why. And they're looking above and below to make sure that there are no other issues that are occurring within the facility. These are some of the issues that are on a reoccurring basis, while these are constant ones. Under reoccurring, I bring you to the bottom bullet, being the mold growth, and you'll see why that is a concern based on the water seepage, leakage, and oftentimes overflowing due to pipes breaking. This gives you a general idea that's above some of our evidence that's kept in the property room, along with sewer pipes that are flowing through the building. As you can see, not always are they containing the remnants that should be kept inside these pipes. On our east wall, and I bring you back to, that is the area, that is the sidewalk that people are walking on Colby and oftentimes on California, but that's above us in our property room. So that's showing you what it's looking like when we have water intrusion that we've asked the property owner to try and seal, and this is over and over and over again what we keep experiencing. Closer look, when patches are done, cement keeps breaking off, water keeps flowing through. This is our drying room. This is after a severe rain that came through, and we had standing water in our drying room, which our staff, again, are going in there to try and dry clothes from victims, other clothes from suspects, whether it's biohazard or water or whatever. They darn near need to put boots on to get in through there. Here's what we had to do when one of the pipes broke, and then we also had water from a heavy rain last fall. This was homicide evidence, and we had to take visqueen tarps to put it over that to secure our evidence to ensure that as we go down the road, whenever that trial comes, it's not damaged. This was a quick fix that we needed to make happen, but then we tried to find areas within that facility to keep it dry. So you can see how this is kind of demoralizing for our staff, that they walk in and okay, we have another water leak, we have something else happening, we need to fix this. Again, more evidence, water seepage through the building. And this is not just one wall. This is all the walls that we're trying to deal with and trying to make usable for our staff and making sure our victims throughout the community have their evidence secured, so whenever a trial comes or whatever, we can get it back to them and we can successfully prosecute a case. We had a 7th floor water pipe break. They did not shut it off for us, and remember, we're in the basement, so we're catching all of this for 3 days because they didn't want to shut off the plumbing, the water to the entire building while other patrons were using it. So we accepted this for 3 days until they were finally able to make a patch, and again, we still have the water coming through. So some of you may remember that used to be a JCPenney's building in the early 70s. I remember it very well. Some of the footprint is still there, and so it hasn't been changed a whole lot. But as I noted earlier, it's hard to describe what metal looks like bowing. This one gives a better picture of it, that you can see that there is all kinds of sediment, all kinds of material that are put in there and then patched. And so this is in one of our storage facilities, one of the rooms, where I walked in and the mayor and Executive Director Lori Cummings came in. She goes, "What is that?" Well, you know, this is just another part of the building, some of the areas that we have to try and avoid. God forbid an earthquake occur. So, you know, I wanted to show this, that this is one of those areas that we try and avoid that area from any storage. I talked a lot about the employee safety and security. We have outdated carpets in there. We cannot pull the carpets up due to asbestos. So they said, well, we can glue down tiles on top of it. Well, that's not going to work. And so, you know, we have that. Some of the old style lighting that's in there that, you know, they're trying to make the best that they can with the facility that they're in, but it's really not conducive for us. Overhead ventilation, that's right above their workspaces. And it's extremely loud and extremely outdated. So as you can see the totality of everything that I'm talking about, our employees are doing the best they can, but it's not a great environment. And so that's why, you know, this urgency to be able to try and move to another facility, like the Comeback building. Comeback building is a great place to move to. This is not just about our AFSCME employees. It's not just about the police department, but this is more about our victims. And our victims that are sexual assault victims. This is cold case homicide victims. And on the picture to the left, you see that's a cooler where DNA is kept, where other pieces of crimes like that are kept. And that's why, you know, as a whole, we are trying to find a new facility to help our victims. So they know that we, in this last page here, is recognized as a leader in law enforcement. We're trying to do everything we can, but as you can see, it's a horrible, horrible place for our employees and evidence storage. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. And Dan Ernest, did you have just a comment on the Comeback building? Is that?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want this or no?
Yeah, just a couple additional points. One is, the good news is our landlord hasn't raised the rent for 14 years on that, so we're struggling by with that. Second, the Comeback building was on surplus property sale, and putting my other real property hat on. I apologize that I didn't kind of connect the dots in the ARPA funding. From the very start, we were saying that we're going to look at various buildings in the city's inventory portfolio, really, and see if there are some that we can change uses of. And, you know, refurbishment would probably be part of that. And I don't think I ever connected the dots between today's and when we started with that. At first, we were thinking specifically childcare and some other things, and I don't think we were thinking the Comeback building, but that emerged from that discussion. And the final thing is for just those who might be concerned about the street presence. One of the things that we've talked about in this $400,000 design is providing two different alternatives for leasable space that we can have on the on the Colby side of the Colmback building, just so the police evidence storage room really is more accessed out the back and has more of the character there, but there's still a place for a tenant to have more kind of Colby downtown oriented facade on the Colby side. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fosse?
Thanks, and I wanted to give Julie appreciation for responding to my prior emails with questions about this project. It was very helpful. I have a couple other ones. I was wondering, with your current accommodations, what is the square footage that you're using, and in the new site, what square footage would you be utilizing there, and is that sufficient enough?
So I don't remember the exact square footage. About 10,000, I would say, is what we were looking for. With the Colmac building, we would be able to move up vertically as well. So we have the basement for storage and then additional space. So it's a lot more space that we'd be able to have. And one thing I wanted to make note, there's windows. And so our employees would be able to see outside too.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the consideration being given to staff, and that safety is the utmost priority in this. I was wondering if you could explain anything about retention issues, or kind of what those laws, rules are, and if that is more of a municipal or is that more of a state level thing? Because you have to hold on to things for quite a long time given what they are, correct?
For the evidence, is that what
Yes.
you're talking about? Yeah, there are different rules for retention. Some of the found property can be disposed of sooner than other cases. Firearms, like I talked about with the ARPA funding for the gift cards, we can get rid of those fairly quickly, as long as Councilmember Zarlingo brought up, being able to check the serial numbers and all that kind of stuff. So it varies with different cases. Some of them, like I showed in that cooler, those are cold case homicides, so that's not going anywhere anytime soon at all.
Okay. Beyond the DNA and the pool storage, are there other things that, I guess there's retention issues, but you're stuck holding on to for a significant amount of time? That seems unnecessary.
There's stuff that's been in there for, I think I saw things in there from like the 60s. This is going off memory, so I don't remember it totally. But the other part too is, there may be family heirlooms that are in there that we're keeping that eventually we can give back. So, that's a positive too.
Okay. And are those rules state level rules for retention?
I don't remember that. I can get back to you on that one, but I do believe there's certain guidelines, and I can get back to you on that one. I just don't have it on top of my head.
Yeah, that would be great, just follow up. And I also noted on there, it says to incorporate future growth for the police department beyond evidence storage. And your email had mentioned with the South Precinct, the No 911 relocating in about 3 years or so. Is there anticipation that eventually this is going to move to the South Precinct, or what are the projected plans?
I think that as Dan said, the renovation of the building is an investment that we can make today, and then if we have to sell it, it's going to be worth more, and it's going to be in better quality and condition. And if we use it for if we do need to leave that location, that if we in 3 years could relocate it, it could be a possibility to relocate it to the South Precinct. So if we buy a commercial refrigerator and then decide in 3 years that we want to move it to that location, we could just move it, and it would be then an investment that was well spent, and it is utilized somewhere else. And then the Colmback would have got that kind of infrastructure. If we have to redo the HVAC or redo, any of the systems within, it's only going to improve the quality of the building. And then we would be able to sell it or lease it.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered your question.
Part of it.
I I can add that I don't believe Snow 911 would be moving to this building in the future.
Flip, yeah, not moving to this building, but us moving over.
Oh, okay, to the South Precinct, I see.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I see. what
Yeah,
you're saying
so
there.
this is, we clearly see this as a location that will be suitable for property room. Is it a permanent location? If I was going to decide where to put a property room, I probably wouldn't put it on downtown Colby, right? But as we've been looking to relocate this building, we've been few and far between in finding something that was affordable, that was suitable for this type of purpose. And then we have this building that we've been trying to sell, no one's buying it. But if we can make an investment in it now, use it and save on the rent that we've been paying for the horrible facility that we're in, and then if we end up moving in 3 or 4 years to the South Precinct, the property room would move, we would, some of the investments would go with the property room, but then the Colback building would be sold. So that is a possibility. It is not set in stone.
Okay, that's helpful. The last part of my question was regarding the police department beyond evidence storage. So what would that be?
We have looked at some opportunities to move some of the existing police training facilities or staff out of the EMB during the EMB tenant improvements, and potentially they could be housed here, which would free up even more rentable space in the EMB throughout that tenant improvement process.
Okay.
And it also could have been me like putting something in that I shouldn't have included. So like it might be an error as well that,
We don't have any expansion plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
all
being
right.
told that the Colback is 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
All right. Councilmember Vogely?
Since this is all out here, and how is this even legal? To, not the money and spending the money on the Colmback building, how is it even legal that we have allowed this for the
So-
past 14 years?
I would encourage you not to ask that question in that way. We are doing everything in our power to take care of our staff and have continually responded to needs that they bring to our attention. So when I've been invited to visit them and see what's going on, we have addressed their needs, and we have been, for months, years, looking for more suitable space. We've also negotiated with the landlord, who should be doing more, right? And so we trust that we are doing everything in our power, and if you have legal questions, I would encourage you to ask those outside of a public meeting to the city attorney.
All right. That's what I have.
Councilmember Zarlingo, you had a comment?
Just a quick note from a building science standpoint, you've had a lot of smaller progressive failures, and it's always nice to get ahead of that. So I want to express my strong support for the moves you're considering. It seems like the right way, the right thing to do from the standpoint of health and safety and good investment. So thank you for bringing that forward, and thanks for the presentation.
Okay. Councilmember Ryan?
I also had questions about the landlord's contractual requirements to provide safe and healthy space for their tenants, because I just saw a bunch of code violations, so I'd be happy to follow up with legal as well to get some more answers on that. I'm curious where the rest of the money is coming from for the project. So if the 400,000 is approved for design, and then the total cost is about, I believe I heard 1.2 million, where's the rest of the money coming from?
Yeah, once we figure out where what the actual cost is going to be, which will be part of this design process, then we would be looking to our normal avenues, our capital funds, most likely to fund the rest of the project.
And I can follow up on this later too. I heard from Dan about the connection between ARPA dollars being used to look at current facilities that the city has and better uses for them, and better ways to just be fiscally responsible with the spaces that we do have. But I'm still not quite sure I'm seeing the connection between ARPA dollars and this project specifically. So I'd be happy to continue that conversation at another time of just if this is the right bucket specifically for this one. So I had some questions too about a couple other things, unless folks wanted to keep on
And
this.
I just wanted to just be very clear, the city can use ARPA to backfill budget hole. We can use ARPA for any number of things. And I think from the beginning, I have one of the tier, I've been very clear, we want to make public investments that are impactful. But lots of cities just used it to fill budget gaps, and then the money was gone. So we have that flexibility too. I think investing in city infrastructure is a very good use of ARPA dollars. We have for decades underinvested in our city infrastructure, which has led to working conditions that are not ideal for our employees and our customers and residents that visit us here in city facilities. So investing in city facilities is a really good use of ARPA one-time dollars, because it is, it's not like hiring staff or expanding programs. Then how do we do that at the end of the time when we no longer have these funding? So Susie is our ARPA expert and has researched extensively what we legally can use ARPA for, and this is very, very eligible and a very good use of ARPA funds in that, for that purpose.
Great. Yeah, I'm familiar, done a lot of work with the ARPA for my other hat too, so there's lots of good stuff. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'd like to call for an executive session, maybe not today because we've been here for a really long time, but if all of this was approved to be placed publicly, I mean, here it is, there it is. So maybe we can have an executive session next week and get some answers about the property room.
I had a couple others.
Okay.
For the fire training facility design at the county executives address yesterday for the budget, there was a mention of a county project for a fire training facility. So I was curious if this is the same or different, or I'm a little bit unclear on the details for what this would be.
I'm going to say I'm not familiar with what the county was proposing. I don't know that the county, Nick, do you know if the county was involved with any of this?
I think Councilmember Schwab might have an answer.
Not a definitive, but there are other fire training projects going on in the county. One is in North County and the other one is in Snohomish. So my understanding is the dollars are going to be for one of those projects, specifically the Snohomish Fire District 4.
Great, yeah, it sounds like the county's putting some money towards something similar, so it'd be great to see if there's an opportunity for a partnership, I think.
I would say that this project would allow us not only for the Navy to utilize the facility and for our staff to use it, but for outside municipalities to, take part and utilize this facility as well for their needs.
Yeah, Chief DeMarco's not here, but this fire training facility is very different than the training facilities anywhere else in the county in that it will be specifically designed to help us work with Naval Station Everett. Right now, Naval Station Everett has a very small fire team. I don't know, it's like 3 employees or something. It's ridiculously small. So they're very reliant on Everett Fire Department should there be a fire on the base. And so an opportunity for our teams to train together, for our team to be able to train their very small team, and to have a facility where we can prepare for shipboard fires, for anything that might happen at the base down there at the waterfront, and have that immediate proximity to the base is very unique and completely unlike any of the other training facilities that might be elsewhere in the county. Additionally, we have a very small fire training facility in Everett, in central Everett. It is on utility-owned property, and the life expectancy of that facility is unknown to the general fund. The utility owns that property and at any time might need that property for utility purposes. So it also would allow Everett to have a training facility within the general fund in our area that we could access at any time.
Great. I just wanted to, for the restrooms, so there's 4 sites, potentially 6 toilets. Which of the sites might have 2 toilets?
Clark Park and the Everett Municipal Building parking lot.
Great. That's
Okay.
all for me, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Fosse.
Okay, so first, thank you, Julie, on the presentation thus far. It was really, really helpful, and I wanted to thank Councilmember Schwab for his clarification on the pallet shelters back when he was talking about the sites and how they serve different demographics and sections of our neighbors with different needs. I think that's a really, really important point to acknowledge, and that different people may be facing homelessness for different varied reasons, and so they're not all the same. I wanted to thank you for your continued work on the palette expansion efforts, even though it is challenging on working on some of the funding mechanisms. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for the continued efforts, and even though it's a pain, it's worth it. So thank you. And then I wanted to thank Mayor Franklin for mentioning the chronic lack of investment that has happened, predating your time here and a lot of our time here in our physical infrastructure and our buildings, because that is a reality. So I think that is a very valid point. I think some of the questions that are coming up today are not necessarily from a lack of acknowledgement of, yes, improvements need to be made, but just because some of us feel fairly removed from some of the ARPA projects and the deciding of which projects are going to be pursued and going forward beyond a little bit more of a rubber stamping role. And so at least I know personally that's where it's come for me. So with that in mind, I'm very curious about the funds yet to be allocated, the 5.6 million, what pockets and what is the intention for those dollars?
There's a small list of projects that were originally put on the possible projects that sit there that we continue to vet, and we work with obviously Mayor Franklin and administration first and foremost, but then try and work within our council liaison teams. And so actually, like public safety, for example, did learn about the Calmback building, but if you're not on the public safety, then you wouldn't have been a part of that conversation. The homeless and housing group did talk about, some of the projects that are related to mental health and housing. So that's kind of one of the hard parts for us as staff, is how do we convey that best to you? And certainly that's why we try and send you emails that are really long and have a lot of information to prompt those questions so that we know who needs more information and what kind of information you need. So at this point,
I'll just add I think when we first had ARPA projects, with the previous council, and I think early with this council as well, we gave a kind of general list of here's the types of projects that the city staff is considering. And they, included a lot of these projects, maybe not all of these projects, and some projects that aren't on that list that are probably on that placeholder list for that 5 million. You will ultimately decide how we spend the 5 million. And as Julie Woolley shared, likely any number of the committees will have part of those projects come through. So depending, if there was something that, was going to be another bridge project or something, that would probably go through the infrastructure committee, or another housing project would go through the homelessness committee. So we've been, because the ARPA happened at a council transition time too, so that previous council got kind of a generalized list initially. We tried to repeat that with this council, and then because of the 8 committee structure, we've been having to use 8 different committees to try to help direct some of these ideas to you prior to bringing it to the full council. But as Julie Woolley said at the beginning, if there are any of these that you are not wishing to support at this time, I encourage you not to just rubber stamp and just agree if you don't agree. I would encourage you to wait. But, these are the things that staff are working on, and we really can't move further unless we know that council will approve funding for them.
And I do recall, before, and probably Councilmember Vogely was there, but when we first started talking about potential projects, the staff really came with priorities based on overall needs of the city, but still wanted to make sure they didn't focus just on one thing, but we really spread the dollars to benefit many parts of the city. And I think that they've done a great job of that, and I think we can see some projects here, the urban forest, the downtown restrooms, housing, the property room, the public safety things, really are touching a lot of parts of the city. And I think that's what's important, that these dollars do share that. And so I think they've done a great job with that. there may be projects that they haven't thought of. And if you have a project that you've seen in a city, I would ask you bring that forward. You know, have you guys looked at this? If you think it's an area that they haven't touched on.
Absolutely.
So the timing and the format for doing that would be at what point in the process?
Council committees?
Okay, so the council committees, though, that were pre-decided for the current council members. Is that?
Well, I think the council committees, so this is the structure that we have this year, right? Regardless if you like it or not, I know I would prefer not to have 8 council committees. It seems like cumbersome to have that many committees, but because it's a structure that we're working in within this year, so while we still have committees, I would encourage you, if there's an ARPA project that we want to do that staff haven't brought forward yet, the Public Safety Committee, for example, could say, we want to do more of this. I think the gun buyback program was something Councilmember Tui was very excited about, so it's probably through conversations that she's had with the chief that kind of rose to a priority level. If there was something in the Housing and Homelessness or the Economic Vitality Committee, that would be a great place for council-led initiatives to start, and then the staff that are helping support that on the committee could either see if it's already on our list or weave it in or bring it back then to the council as a whole.
So
Can I interject for a moment?
Yeah.
We definitely need to have, I think, conversation, gosh, this is going forever, but about the committees, and I'm going to now put this out in public, which I've been doing so much of today, and it has to do with committees, and I'm going to look at a PLA thing. It was supposed to go, I had motioned it earlier in like May, got a second, supposed to go to legal, then it's like, well, take it to committee. That committee doesn't have the 3 members that doesn't. And the committees are complicated.
The committees are complicated, yes, thank you. And so I'm just going to be bringing it forward, and I'm hoping to get it on the agenda. So this is just one of those, that's a very, what Councilmember Fossey is mentioning about, committees, how are we gonna, figure out what we want? We don't have public committee meetings right now. We did before. We're all getting out of COVID. And then this is another example, the one that I just brought forward. So now everybody knows I'm in favor of a PLA and right about it. But, it's been very difficult to figure out who wants to do what, because who gets to talk to who? Oh my goodness. And there's laws, RCWs, open public meetings, all of that goodness.
Well, I think we should have further conversation. I think for today, we don't want to tie up the staff much longer. If there are any comments relating to Julie's presentation, we'll
I still have
listen to
more.
those. Okay.
Okay, so with that in mind, then, if I'm going to bring forward more of the ARPA suggestions for projects, would I be going to the Housing Committee and submitting something to them because I am not on that committee? I'm just trying to figure out what the process would be.
You have a couple different options. So this is a strong mayor form of government, right? And so I am the person who gets to direct the 1,100 plus employees that work for me. So if there's a project that you would like us to work on that we're not currently working on, a good start would be to have a conversation with me and say, hey, Mayor, do you think staff should work on this? And if it's something that is aligned with the projects that we're already working on or aligned with the priorities that I have staff working on, then I say yes. And then I can just direct staff, and you don't have to do all the cumbersome committee stuff, because I can just direct staff to do that, because that's the form of government we have. If it's not aligned, and I'm like, ugh, I don't really have the time for staff to do that right now, they're doing all these other things that I think, but you still really want it, then you as a council can initiate it through your committee structure. And so you would recommend to your committee or your council president, hey, I'd like us to work on this, and then you can work on it in that way. And if I'm misspeaking, legal, please jump in, but.
I'm missing the point of where if I'm not on that committee.
You could talk to the council president and ask if they could direct the committee to work on it. But that's the thing. I think I remember having this conversation with Councilmember Vogely early on as a council member. She's like, I want to work on this and this and this. I was like, well, you can't be on all the committees. So again,
previously, the council, years ago, was a council as a whole, and everything was together. So you, as a council, could choose later in this year, and to do this format next year, is to abolish all the committees and just start doing everything back as a council as a whole. So that is an option too. So there's options for you to work differently, but again, I'm not in charge of the structure. This is just the structure we have that you all approved for this year, or the previous council, or whenever it happened. I'm sorry, I don't remember all those.
Note for the public, we did not get to decide what committees that we were on. So when this comes up in the future and we do abolish it or decide to move in a different direction, bookmark for how chaotic it was. Moving on to my next question, I was really pleased to see the public safety gun buyback. I've said that before. I do think gun violence is preventable, so I was wondering, in addition to kind of the media efforts, was there anything else that you considered in this arena to address gun violence beyond the gun buyback, just, you know, when you were brainstorming, or other examples of other places that had done similar efforts?
So the chief and I have had multiple conversations about gun violence and what we can do to prevent it. And so we constantly kind of watch what other communities are doing and what's effective. I often have conversations with Council Vice President Toohey, because it's been a passion of hers since her tenure in office as well. And so as ideas percolate up, they just kind of rise to the top. Kirkland was probably the model where we saw this being very effective and said, let's try to implement that. And it's a really inexpensive way to try to get some guns off the streets. But obviously we've done the free gun locks, and we've done other initiatives to try to reduce gun violence in our city. And we'll continue to do that with or without ARPA dollars.
I think you're missing the point of my question. Were there other things that you considered for the ARPA dollars to reduce gun violence that
Not
maybe
at this
didn't?
time.
Okay, so there wasn't any. I was just looking for other good ideas that maybe other communities had done that you had come across.
If the
Okay.
chief were here, he'd probably have a load of other ideas that he'd been considering, but this is the only one that crossed my desk.
Okay. And then my other question, back to the public restrooms. Does any of that dollar amount include any sort of signage for directing to where the public restrooms will be?
Yeah, wayfinding has absolutely been a part of the project idea, that, because we also have a library, we have a transit center, we have a municipal building, we have a police department. Those also have restrooms, and so we wanted to figure out where these are and then do a whole wayfinding signage for all public restrooms.
I'm glad to hear that, because with tying in also to the tourist aspect of how that could be beneficial for, you know, tourists having adequate signage kind of directing people where to go. I always found that helpful when I was traveling to different cities, so thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, with that, any other comments? Do I dare ask?
Ooh, 20 more minutes.
All right, without any
I
other,
jest.
with no further business and no executive session, we are now adjourned.